Chapter 1. Ghosts and Mops. Mac Powell pushed his yellow cleaning cart down the empty hallway of Roosevelt High School, the wheels squeaking against freshly waxed linoleum. At 43, he moved with an economy of motion that most people mistook for laziness. The gray custodial uniform hung loose on his lean frame, and his weathered hands gripped the mop handle like it was the most natural thing in the world. It wasn't. 6 years ago, those same hands had gripped a rifle during a SEAL team operation in Kandahar. He'd been Lieutenant Mac Powell then, leading a team of 8 into a Taliban stronghold. The mission went sideways when bad intelligence led them into an ambush. Mac had to make an impossible choice: save his team or complete the objective. He chose his men. 3 SEALs died anyway, and a high-value target named Khalid Goodwin, an American-born weapons dealer supplying insurgents, was killed in the crossfire. The Navy gave Mac a Silver Star. Mac gave them his resignation. "Hey, Mr. Powell." A girl's voice echoed down the hallway. Mac turned to see Jasmine McDowell, a sophomore with bright eyes and a stack of books clutched to her chest. She was one of the few students who actually acknowledged him beyond a polite nod. "Jasmine, shouldn't you be in class?" "Hall pass." She waved a pink slip. "I just wanted to say thanks for fixing my locker yesterday." "You didn't have to do that." Mac offered a slight smile. "Part of the job. Most janitors wouldn't have stayed late." She hesitated. "My mom wanted me to give you this." She pulled out a Tupperware container. "She made extra lasagna." Mac's throat tightened. Kindness always hit harder than bullets. "Tell her I said thanks." As Jasmine walked away, Mac's phone buzzed. A text from his wife, Lorna. "Don't forget, dinner with Whitney tonight. 7 p.m., or something nice. Love you." Whitney Wong, the principal, had become friends with Lorna at a community event. Mac found her intense but fair, exactly the kind of leader this school needed. Tonight's dinner was supposed to be casual, but Mac suspected Whitney wanted to discuss something more serious. The bell rang, and students flooded the hallways like a dam breaking. Mac positioned his cart near the lockers, invisible as always. That's when he noticed him, a man in his late 30s standing by the east entrance, wearing sunglasses indoors and surveying the hallway with predatory focus. Mac's instincts screamed. The man's posture, the way his right hand hovered near his jacket pocket, the tactical boots poorly hidden beneath loose jeans. This wasn't a parent or teacher. Their eyes met for a fraction of a second. The man's jaw tightened before he turned and left through the main entrance. Mac memorized every detail. 6 feet 1 inch, stocky build, anchor tattoo on his left neck, slight limp favoring his right leg. Old training dies hard. That evening, Mac arrived home to their modest 2-bedroom house on Maple Street. Lorna was in the kitchen, her auburn hair pulled back as she chopped vegetables. She'd been a nurse at the county hospital for 12 years, and the stress showed in the fine lines around her eyes. But when she smiled at him, Mac remembered why he'd married her 9 years ago. She saw through his walls without trying to break them down. "How was work?" she asked, kissing his cheek. "Same as always. Fixed a toilet, cleaned up a science experiment gone wrong, mopped 3 hallways." "You love it." "I love the quiet." Lorna studied him. "Something's wrong." Mac considered lying, then decided against it. "Saw someone at school today. Didn't feel right." "Should you tell Whitney?" "Not enough to go on. Just a feeling." Lorna touched his arm. "Your feelings kept you alive for 20 years. Don't ignore them now." Chapter 2. Gathering Storms. The next morning, Mac arrived at Roosevelt High an hour early, as always. He used the time to walk the perimeter, checking exits and sight lines, habits that confused the other custodial staff, but gave him peace of mind. Gregory Lowe, the history teacher and fellow veteran, was already in his classroom preparing lessons. At 56, Gregory had served in the Army Rangers before a shrapnel injury forced him out. He and Mac had formed an unspoken bond, 2 warriors trying to leave war behind. "Coffee," Gregory offered, holding up a thermos. "Thanks." Mac accepted the cup and sat on a student desk. "You ever miss it?" "Every damn day." "You." "Only the clear objectives. Bad guys wear uniforms. Made things simple." Gregory laughed darkly. "Nothing about war is simple, Mac. We just pretend it was because civilian life is complicated as hell." The conversation was interrupted by raised voices from the main office. Mac and Gregory exchanged glances before heading toward the commotion. Principal Whitney Wong stood in her office, facing a man whom Mac immediately recognized, The suspicious figure from yesterday, now without sunglasses. Up close, Mac could see the anger burning in his eyes. Mr. Goodwin, I've explained our security protocols, Whitney began. I don't care about protocols, the man snarled. I'm Barney Goodwin. My nephew was supposed to start here this week, and now you're telling me there's a waiting list? Mac froze. Goodwin. The name detonated in his memory like a grenade. Khalid Goodwin had a younger brother, Barney. Intelligence had flagged him as a small-time arms dealer who'd gone to ground after Khalid's death. The waiting list is district policy, Whitney tried again. This is bullshit. Barney slammed his hand on her desk. I'll be back to settle this, one way or another. He stormed past Mac without a second glance, but Mac saw it, the recognition flickering in Barney's eyes as they passed. He knew. Somehow, Barney Goodwin had found him. After Barney left, Mac approached Whitney's office. You okay? Whitney sighed, rubbing her temples. Angry parents are part of the job. But that one. She shook her head. Something felt off. I can look into him if you want. You're a janitor, Mac, not security. Whitney smiled tiredly. But I appreciate the offer. See you tonight for dinner? Mac nodded, his mind already racing through possibilities. Barney Goodwin showing up at his school wasn't coincidence. It was reconnaissance. That afternoon, during lunch period, Mac found Jasmine McDowell sitting alone in the library, tears streaming down her face. He grabbed a box of tissues from his cart and sat down 2 chairs away, close enough to help, far enough to respect her space. Want to talk about it? He asked quietly. She wiped her eyes. Tyler Brennan and his stupid friends keep posting fake pictures of me online, making fun of my clothes, my weight, everything. Her voice cracked. I just want to disappear. Mac felt old rage stirring. Bullies came in all forms. High school kids, Taliban fighters, corrupt weapons dealers. The uniform changed, but the cruelty remained constant. You know what I learned in the military? Mac said, bullies are cowards. They attack people they think can't fight back. But you're stronger than they are, Jasmine. Because you have something they don't, character. That doesn't stop them. No, but it means you'll outlast them. 10 years from now, you'll be somebody, and they'll still be cruel losers hiding behind screens. He paused. And if Tyler keeps it up, maybe his computer mysteriously breaks. Glitches happen. Jasmine laughed through her tears. You do that? I didn't say anything. Mac stood, pushing his cart. I just know things have a way of working themselves out. That night at dinner, Whitney talked about budget cuts and teacher retention, while Lorna discussed hospital staffing issues. Mac listened with half his attention, the other half stuck on Barney Goodwin's arrival. As they were leaving the restaurant, Mac's phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. I know who you are, Powell. You killed my brother. Tomorrow, we settle accounts. Don't involve anyone else, or everyone dies. Mac deleted the message, his face calm even as his pulse elevated. The war he'd tried to leave behind had finally caught up with him. Chapter 3, The Devil's Plan. Barney Goodwin sat in a cheap motel room across town, staring at the photo of his older brother Khalid. 6 years of searching, 6 years of tracking down every SEAL involved in that Kandahar operation, and finally, he'd found the man responsible. Lieutenant Mac Powell, decorated hero, broken soldier, now hiding as a janitor. You ready for this? Alfonso Ewing asked from the corner. At 28, Alfonso was all muscle and rage, fresh out of a 5-year prison stint for aggravated assault. Barney had recruited him from an underground fighting ring where Alfonso hurt people for money. Been ready for 6 years, Barney replied. The third man, Raymundo Thompson, hunched over a laptop, his fingers flying across the keyboard. At 35, Raymundo was the brains, a tech expert who'd been dishonorably discharged from the Marines for hacking military databases. He owed Barney for keeping him out of federal prison. I've got the school's security system mapped, Raymundo said. 14 cameras, all routing through a central server I can shut down remotely. The main office has a panic button linked to local police. Response time is approximately 8 minutes. We'll be done in 5, Barney said. Here's the plan. Tomorrow at 11 a.m., we hit during lunch. Maximum chaos, maximum students. Raymundo kills the cameras and blocks the doors electronically. Alfonso and I go in armed, round up everyone in the cafeteria. And Powell? Alfonso asked, cracking his knuckles. Barney's smile was cruel. We make him choose, save the kids or save himself. Either way, He dies knowing he failed again, just like he failed my brother. What Barney didn't know was that his younger brother, Buck Goodwin, was watching from the motel parking lot. At 33, Buck had tried to steer clear of Khaled and Barney's criminal enterprises, working as a construction foreman and raising 2 kids. But family was family, and Buck had followed Barney from Nevada to Kansas, worried about his brother's descent into obsession. Buck didn't approve of this plan. Attacking a school? Targeting kids? That wasn't justice, it was terrorism. But he also understood Barney's pain. Khaled had been their protector after their father abandoned them. When Khaled died, something in Barney broke permanently. Buck made a decision. He'd call the cops anonymously tomorrow morning, give them a heads up about potential trouble at Roosevelt High. It wouldn't stop Barney completely, but maybe it would save some lives. Inside the motel room, Barney raised a beer bottle. To Khaled, and to making Powell suffer like we've suffered. Alfonso and Raimundo clinked bottles with him, sealing their fate. Chapter 4, Lockdown. Tuesday morning began like any other. Mac arrived at 6 a.m., performed his security walk, and started cleaning the gym. At 8:15, students flooded in, their voices creating that familiar wall of noise. Jasmine waved at him from across the hallway, and Gregory Lowe nodded from his classroom doorway. Everything felt normal. That's when Mac knew something was very wrong. At 10:45 a.m., Mac was cleaning the second-floor bathrooms when his instincts screamed. He looked out the window and saw a white van park in the fire lane, illegal parking that the school's traffic monitor would normally challenge immediately. But the monitor was nowhere in sight. 3 men exited the van. Barney Goodwin, a massive man with a shaved head, a nervous-looking guy carrying a laptop bag, all wearing long coats despite the mild weather. Mac's military training took over. He pulled out his phone and texted Lorna, "Trouble at school. I love you. Don't call. Don't come here." Then he dialed 911, keeping his voice calm as he reported armed intruders at Roosevelt High before hanging up. Response time, 8 minutes minimum. Mac abandoned his cart and moved toward the stairwell. He needed to get to the main office, to the PA system, to warn everyone. But before he could reach the stairs, an alarm blared. Not the fire alarm, but the lockdown signal. Someone had already spotted the intruders. All students and staff, initiate lockdown procedures. Whitney Wong's voice crackled over the intercom, maintaining professional composure even as Mac heard fear underneath. This is not a drill. Lock your doors, lights off, stay silent. Gunfire erupted from the first floor. Screaming followed. Mac didn't hesitate. He descended the stairs 3 at a time, his mind cataloging resources, fire extinguishers as weapons, electrical panels for tactical darkness, his knowledge of every room, every exit, every hiding spot in this building. He reached the first-floor landing and peered around the corner. The main hallway was chaos, students running, teachers herding kids into classrooms, and at the center of it all, Barney Goodwin firing a pistol into the ceiling. "Everybody into the cafeteria," Barney roared. "Move, or I start shooting people." Alfonso, the muscle, grabbed a crying freshman and shoved him toward the cafeteria. The tech guy, Raimundo, stood by the main entrance with a laptop, presumably controlling the electronic locks. Mac counted. 3 hostels, approximately 200 students and 20 staff members. Barney and Alfonso both carried semi-automatic pistols. Raimundo appeared unarmed, but was the key to their control over the building. Gregory Lowe emerged from his classroom, hands raised, shepherding his students toward the cafeteria. His eyes found Mac in the stairwell, and something passed between them, a warrior's understanding. "Clear the classrooms," Alfonso shouted, checking doors. He kicked open a locked classroom and dragged out a terrified teacher. "Cafeteria. Now." Mac waited until Alfonso passed his position, then stepped out silently behind him. One swift strike to the nerve cluster behind Alfonso's knee, and the big man stumbled. Mac caught the pistol as it fell, ejected the magazine, and cleared the chamber before Alfonso even hit the ground. "What the?" Alfonso turned, reaching for Mac. Mac drove the empty pistol into Alfonso's solar plexus, stealing his breath, then swept his legs and dropped him face first onto the tile. In 3 seconds, Alfonso was unconscious, zip-tied with maintenance ties from Mac's belt, and dragged into a supply closet. One down. But Barney had heard the commotion. He turned, saw Mac, and his face twisted with recognition and fury. "You." Barney aimed his pistol. I knew you'd come. Mac dove behind a water fountain as shots exploded, concrete chips spraying. Students screamed, and teachers pulled kids into classrooms, slamming doors. This is between us, Goodwin. Mac shouted. Let the kids go. Like you let my brother go? Barney fired again. You killed Khalid. You destroyed my family. Mac's mind raced. He needed to separate Barney from Raymundo, eliminate their technological advantage, and protect the students, all without getting anyone killed. 3 objectives, 0 margin for error. He grabbed a fire extinguisher from the wall and rolled it across the hallway toward Raymundo. The tech guy startled, backing away from his laptop. Mac used the distraction to sprint across the open space, sliding into the cafeteria entrance. Inside, students huddled against the walls, teachers forming protective barriers with their bodies. Mac spotted Whitney Wong at the center, her face pale but composed, whispering reassurances to crying sophomores. Lock this door after me, Mac told a nearby teacher. Don't open it for anyone but police. What are you going to do? The teacher asked. My job. Mac stepped back into the hallway and locked the cafeteria door from the outside, trapping Barney and Raymundo out. Now they couldn't threaten the students directly. Barney's rage boiled over. You think you're smart? Raymundo, open that door. But Raymundo was staring at his laptop in confusion. The system's not responding. Something's wrong. Mac smiled coldly. I unplugged your router 20 minutes ago. Noticed it when I was cleaning the IT closet. Seemed suspicious. It was a bluff. Mac had done no such thing, but the doubt in Raymundo's eyes was real. Panic made people sloppy. Forget the door. Barney snarled. We find Powell. We end this. Mac melted into the building's shadows, becoming the ghost he'd been trained to be. The hunter was now the hunted, and Barney Goodwin was about to learn why Mac Powell had survived 20 years of the world's most dangerous operations. The real fight was just beginning. Chapter 5, The Hunter's Game. Mac moved through Roosevelt High like smoke, using every corridor and crawl space he'd mapped over 5 years of custodial work. Barney and Raymundo split up to search for him, their tactical error evident to anyone with military training. Never divide your force against a superior opponent. Mac circled behind Raymundo first. The tech guy was sweating, his pistol held awkwardly as he cleared rooms near the library. Mac had already disabled the lights in this section, plunging the hallway into dimness broken only by emergency exit signs. Barney, Raymundo called out, his voice cracking. Where are you, man? Mac stepped from a recessed doorway directly behind him. He can't help you. Raymundo spun, raising his weapon, but Mac was faster. He grabbed Raymundo's wrist, twisted it at an angle that forced his fingers open, and caught the falling pistol. In one fluid motion, Mac swept Raymundo's legs and pinned him face down, one knee on his spine. Please don't kill me, Raymundo gasped. This wasn't my idea. Barney made me. Where's the third man? Alfonso. I don't know. He was supposed to stay near the entrance. Already taken care of. Mac zip-tied Raymundo's wrists and ankles. Why are you really here? Raymundo hesitated, then cracked. Barney's brother, Khalid. You killed him in Afghanistan. Barney's been obsessed with revenge for 6 years. He tracked you here, planned this whole thing. A gunshot shattered a window above them. Barney had found them. Mac rolled away as more shots followed, dragging Raymundo behind a bookshelf. Stay down, he ordered, then disappeared into the stacks. Barney entered the library, his pistol sweeping the room. I know you're here, Powell. You can't hide forever. Mac studied Barney from his concealed position. The man was angry, sloppy, wasting ammunition on shadows. But he was also desperate, which made him dangerous. Desperate men did unpredictable things. Your brother was supplying weapons to terrorists, Mac called out, keeping his voice neutral and projecting it to disguise his location. He was helping people who killed American soldiers. I didn't want him dead, but he fought back. Liar. Barney fired toward Mac's voice, hitting a computer monitor. Khalid was a businessman. You murdered him in cold blood. Is that what you tell yourself? Mac shifted positions, circling toward Barney. Your brother sold RPGs that killed a Marine squad outside Kabul. Sold IEDs that maimed Afghan civilians. He wasn't innocent, Goodwin. He was a terrorist. Shut up, Mac continued, his voice cutting through Barney's rage. And now you're terrorizing kids to avenge a murderer. What does that make you? Barney's hands trembled. It makes me a man who doesn't forget, who doesn't forgive. It makes you a fool. Mac stepped into view, unarmed, hands visible. Your brother's dead. Nothing changes that. But you can still walk away from this. The students are safe, your men are down, and the cops will be here any second. Drop the gun. For a moment, something flickered in Barney's eyes. Doubt. Maybe even regret. Then it hardened into resolve. If I'm going down, you're coming with me. Barney aimed, his finger tightening on the trigger. Gregory Lowe appeared from behind a bookshelf, swinging a fire extinguisher. It connected with Barney's skull with a sickening crack, and Barney collapsed, the pistol clattering away. Couldn't let you have all the fun, Gregory said, breathing hard. Mac grabbed the pistol and checked Barney's pulse. Alive, unconscious. Thought you were in the cafeteria? Snuck out through the kitchen when you locked the door. Figured you might need backup. Sirens wailed outside. Flashing lights painted the library walls red and blue. Police. Drop your weapons, voices shouted from the hallway. Mac and Gregory carefully placed the guns on the floor and raised their hands. Within seconds, a SWAT team stormed in, securing the area. Mac and Gregory were separated, cuffed, and led outside while officers cleared the building room by room. In the chaos, Mac saw Lorna running toward him, tears streaming down her face. An officer held her back as Mac was placed in a police car for questioning, standard protocol after any shooting incident. Through the car window, Mac watched as paramedics loaded Barney onto a stretcher. Alfonso and Raimundo were brought out in handcuffs. Students poured from the building, reuniting with frantic parents. And standing at the edge of the crowd, watching with cold calculation, was a man Mac didn't recognize, tall, broad-shouldered, with the same sharp features as Barney Goodwin. Buck Goodwin, the brother Mac didn't know existed. The brother who was already planning his own revenge. Chapter 6, Aftermath and Shadows. The police station's interrogation room smelled like burnt coffee and institutional despair. Detective Donovan Klein sat across from Mac, a folder thick with witness statements spread before him. At 49, Klein was a 25-year veteran with sharp eyes that missed nothing. So let me get this straight, Klein said. You're a janitor who somehow managed to neutralize 3 armed intruders, protect 200 students, and do it all without a single casualty. Want to explain how a janitor learns those skills? I was Navy. 20 years. Klein's expression shifted slightly. What did you do in the Navy? Maintenance. Logistics. Bullshit. Klein leaned forward. I called in a favor at NCIS. Your file is classified up to your eyeballs. But what I can see says you were special operations. SEAL team, probably. Now you're going to tell me why a decorated operator is mopping floors, and why 3 men with serious firepower came looking for you specifically. Mac had prepared for this. Truth, but not the whole truth. 6 years ago, I led a mission that went bad. We engaged hostile forces in Afghanistan, and a target was killed in crossfire. That target, Khalid Goodwin, was the brother of today's shooter, Barney Goodwin. Barney blamed me for his brother's death and tracked me here for revenge. And you didn't think to mention to anyone that you had enemies? I thought I'd left that life behind. Klein studied him for a long moment. The DA wants to call you a hero. The school board wants to give you a medal. But I've got a dead man's brother in the hospital screaming about murder, and I've got you, a trained killer working around children. That makes sense to you. I'm not a killer, detective. I'm someone who protects people. From threats you brought to their doorstep. The words hit like a punch, but Mac couldn't deny their truth. Klein continued, here's what's going to happen. You're going to sit tight while I verify your story. If it checks out, you're free to go. If it doesn't, you're looking at charges ranging from reckless endangerment to voluntary manslaughter for Alfonso Ewing's injuries. He'll live, Mac said flatly. That's not the point. Klein stood. Stay in town. Don't leave the state. And Powell, if there are any other ghosts from your past I should know about, now's the time. Mac thought of Buck Goodwin's face in the crowd. No more ghosts. Another lie. Outside the station, Lorna wrapped Mac in a fierce hug. Don't ever scare me like that again. I'm sorry. No, you're not. She pulled back, studying his face. You did exactly what you needed to do, and you'd do it again. I know that. I knew it when I married you. But Mac, what if next time you don't walk away? There won't be a next time. Even as he said it, Mac knew it was false. Buck Goodwin represented unfinished business, and unfinished business always came calling. That night, after Lorna fell asleep, Mac sat in his garage with a beer, staring at a locked footlocker he hadn't opened in 6 years. Inside were the remnants of his military life, medals he didn't want, photos of teammates he'd lost, and an encrypted satellite phone that connected him to his former handler at JSOC. He made the call. Powell. The voice on the other end was surprised. Been a long time. I need background on a family. Goodwin. Khalid had at least 2 brothers, Barney and someone else. I need names, locations, known associates. Is this about the school incident? Already made the news. Just get me the information. Mac, you're not in the game anymore. Let the authorities handle this. The authorities don't know what they're dealing with. Mac's voice hardened. Khalid Goodwin wasn't just an arms dealer. He was connected to something bigger. I need to know what Barney was really after today, and who else might come looking. A pause. I'll see what I can dig up. But Mac, this path doesn't end well. It ended 6 years ago. I'm just tying up loose ends. Mac hung up and sat in silence, knowing that violence, once invited into your life, never fully leaves. It just waits in the shadows, patient and hungry, for the next excuse to emerge. And Buck Goodwin was sharpening that excuse right now. Chapter 7, Blood Debts. 3 days after the incident, Roosevelt High reopened with enhanced security, counselors on every floor, and a student body forever changed. Mac returned to work, though now every student knew who he really was. Instead of invisible janitor, he'd become a reluctant celebrity. Kids asked for selfies, teachers thanked him in hushed, reverent tones, and the school board officially offered him a security position. He declined. Security meant visibility, and visibility meant targets. But the biggest change was external. Buck Goodwin had done his homework. Mac's former JSOC handler delivered the intel via encrypted email. Buck Goodwin, 33, construction foreman, married with 2 children, no criminal record. Unlike his brothers, Buck had tried to live clean. But family loyalty was a powerful thing, and Barney's arrest had ignited something in Buck. The email included surveillance photos. Buck meeting with Alfonso Ewing's younger cousin, a gang member named Wilbur Kruger. Buck visiting Raymundo Thompson's apartment before Raymundo's arraignment. Buck sitting in a car outside Mac's house at 2 a.m. The message was clear. Buck wasn't coming alone, and he wasn't interested in the legal system. This was tribal justice, blood for blood. On Thursday evening, Mac received a call from Detective Klein. We've got a problem. What kind of problem? Barney Goodwin made bail. Some hotshot lawyer from Nevada posted $500,000 and had him released on medical grounds. He's supposed to stay in state, but I'd bet my pension he disappears within 48 hours. Mac's jaw tightened. Who's the lawyer? Name's Buck Goodwin. Any relation? His brother. Shit. Klein exhaled heavily. Look, Powell, I know you can handle yourself, but these people are motivated. Family grudges don't end with arrests. They end with funerals. I'm assigning a patrol car to your street, just in case. Don't bother. A patrol car won't stop what's coming. Then what will? Mac considered his options. Running was out. He'd tried that once, and violence found him anyway. Hiding endangered Lorna and everyone around him. Which left one choice, confrontation on his terms. I'll handle it, Mac said. That's what I'm afraid of. Klein's voice dropped. Don't do anything stupid. The law might be slow, but it works. The law didn't protect those students. I did. Klein couldn't argue with that. That night, Mac sat Lorna down at their kitchen table and told her everything. About Khalid Goodwin's weapons empire, the ambush in Kandahar, the impossible choice he'd made, and the revenge that had followed him across 6 years and 3,000 miles. When he finished, Lorna was quiet for a long time. What are you going to do? She finally asked. Make sure this ends. Permanently. By doing what? Mac met her eyes. Whatever it takes. Lorna reached across the table and took his hand. Then I'm with you. Whatever happens, we face it together. Mac wanted to argue, to protect her from what was coming. But he'd learned long ago that Lorna Powell was nobody's victim. She'd married a warrior knowing the cost, and she wouldn't abandon the fight now. Tomorrow, I'm taking a personal day, Mac said. I need to set some things in motion. What things? The kind that make bad people go away. The next morning, Mac drove to a storage unit on the edge of town. A facility he'd rented under a false name years ago, his insurance policy against the past catching up. Inside the unit were items he'd forgotten to turn in when he left the Navy. Body armor, a suppressed M4 carbine, night vision goggles, and enough ammunition to fight a small war. He also had files, intelligence he'd kept on Khalid Goodwin's network, including details the Navy had classified to protect ongoing operations. What Mac had learned during that mission was that Khalid wasn't just an arms dealer. He was a broker connecting international weapons manufacturers with terrorist cells. His death had disrupted billions in illegal transactions, and his brothers were trying to rebuild that empire. Mac's phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Parking garage, 5th and Main, 9 p.m. tonight. Come alone, we talk. Don't show, we visit your wife at work. The trap was obvious, clumsy even. But Mac couldn't ignore a direct threat against Lorna. He texted back, I'll be there. Then he began preparing for war. Chapter 8, The Trap Springs. Mac arrived at the 5th and Main parking garage at 8:30 p.m., giving himself 30 minutes to scout the terrain. The structure was 5 levels, open air on 3 sides, with limited exits. Perfect for an ambush, terrible for escape. He parked 2 blocks away and approached on foot, using shadows and parked cars for concealment. His body armor was concealed under a loose jacket, the M4 broken down in a gym bag. He carried a Glock 19 in a hip holster, obvious enough to spot in a pat-down, hidden enough to access if things went bad. At 8:45, Mac entered the 2nd level and found a position behind a concrete pillar with sight lines on the entire floor. He waited. At 8:55, a black SUV pulled in, parking near the center. Buck Goodwin emerged first, followed by Wilbur Kruger and 2 others Mac didn't recognize. Muscle, probably ex-cons like Alfonso. But no Barney. Interesting. Mac stepped from behind the pillar, hands visible. Buck Goodwin. Surprised you showed your face. Buck turned, his expression cold. Powell, the famous Navy SEAL, playing Janitor. I'm done playing anything. This ends tonight. You're damn right it does. Buck gestured to his men, who spread out in a loose semicircle. You killed my brother Khalid. You put Barney in the hospital. Now you're going to pay. Khalid was a terrorist. Barney attacked a school full of children. If you're looking for sympathy, you came to the wrong guy. Wilbur Kruger laughed, a nasty sound. We ain't looking for sympathy, old man. We're looking for justice. Justice? Mac's voice turned hard. You want justice? Let's talk about the 43 people your brother's weapons killed. The Marine who lost both legs to an IED Khalid supplied. The Afghan schoolgirls murdered by Taliban fighters using Khalid's guns. Where's their justice? My brother was a businessman. Buck shouted, his composure cracking. You turned him into a monster to justify murder. Your brother was always a monster. You just chose not to see it. The accusation hung in the air. Buck's face twisted with rage and grief, the toxic combination that made men do terrible things. Kill him, Buck ordered. Wilbur and his crew drew weapons, pistols, all of them. Mac had a split-second advantage. They expected him to draw his own pistol to make this a fair fight. Mac didn't do fair. He triggered the remote detonator in his pocket, and the explosive charges he'd planted earlier, small amounts of C4 stolen from his SEAL days, hidden in the SUV's undercarriage during his recon, detonated with a thunderous roar. The SUV exploded, the shockwave knocking everyone off their feet. Metal shrapnel and glass shards became deadly projectiles. Wilbur went down screaming, clutching his leg. One of the muscle guys didn't get up at all. Mac was already moving, using the chaos to close distance. He tackled Buck, driving him into the concrete, and pressed the Glock against his skull. Stop! Mac roared at the remaining gunmen. Drop your weapons, or Buck dies. The survivors froze, looking at their boss pinned beneath a furious warrior. You think this is justice? Mac hissed in Buck's ear. This is stupidity. Your brothers chose violence, and violence destroyed them. You could have walked away, raised your kids, lived a good life. Instead, you came after me, and now people are dead. Was it worth it? Buck struggled, but Mac's weight and leverage were perfect. You don't get to lecture me about family. I lost 3 teammates in that ambush your brother set up. 3 men with wives, kids, parents who mourn them. Don't talk to me about family. You don't know the meaning of the word. Sirens wailed in the distance. Mac had anonymously tipped Detective Klein about the meeting, timing it for maximum impact. Here's what happens next, Mac continued. You're going to testify against everyone involved in Khalid's weapons network. You're going to give the FBI names, accounts, shipping routes. You're going to burn it all down, or I'm going to leak the evidence I have that you've been laundering money for your brothers for 10 years. Choice is yours. Buck's eyes widened. You're bluffing. Am I? Mac pulled out his phone, showing Buck bank transaction records he'd hacked. Proof of Buck's complicity in Khalid's empire. Your clean record? It's a lie. You've been dirty this whole time. But I'm offering you a way out. Take it, or spend the next 20 years in federal prison. The remaining gunmen saw police lights entering the parking garage and scattered. Wilbur tried to crawl away, but Mac zip-tied him without releasing Buck. What's it going to be? Mac asked. Buck's resistance crumbled. Fine. I'll talk. Just don't hurt my family. They didn't know. Neither did mine. Mac stood, keeping the Glock trained on Buck. But I'm not your brothers. I don't punish the innocent. Police cars screeched to a stop, officers pouring out with weapons drawn. Mac carefully placed his pistol on the ground and raised his hands. I'm Mac Powell. These men attempted to murder me. One of them is injured. Detective Klein emerged from a patrol car, taking in the destroyed SUV, the wounded men, and Mac standing calmly in the center. His expression was equal parts fury and resignation. Powell, you better have a damn good explanation. They threatened my wife. I defended myself. With explosives? It was a car bomb. I just triggered it early. Klein pinched the bridge of his nose. We're going to have a very long conversation about this. I'm looking forward to it. As paramedics loaded Wilbur and the dead gunman, and officers cuffed Buck Goodwin, Mac spotted Barney watching from a vehicle across the street. Their eyes met, a final acknowledgement between enemies. Then Barney drove away, disappearing into the night. Mac knew they'd cross paths again someday. Men like Barney Goodwin didn't forgive or forget, but neither did Mac Powell. And next time, Mac would be ready. Chapter 9, Redemption and Resolve. The FBI investigation took 6 weeks. Buck Goodwin, facing overwhelming evidence of money laundering and conspiracy, cut a deal, full cooperation in exchange for a reduced sentence. His testimony dismantled what remained of Khalid Goodwin's weapons network, leading to 43 arrests across 5 countries. Barney Goodwin was found in Mexico, resisting extradition. He'd spend years fighting it, but eventually, the law would catch him. Mac didn't care whether it took months or years. Justice, however slow, was still justice. Roosevelt High held an assembly honoring Mac and Gregory Lowe. Principal Whitney Wong presented them with the school's highest civilian award, and the students gave a standing ovation that lasted 5 minutes. Mac stood on stage, uncomfortable with the attention but understanding its importance. These kids needed to see that good people existed, that heroes were real. After the assembly, Jasmine McDowell approached him in the hallway. Mr. Powell, I wanted to give you this. She handed him a card signed by her entire class. Inside, in careful handwriting, she'd written, You showed us that strength means protecting others, not hurting them. Thank you for being someone we can look up to. Mac's throat tightened. Thank you, Jasmine. That means more than you know. Are you staying? As our janitor. Mac glanced at Lorna, who stood nearby with an encouraging smile. Yeah, I'm staying. Because for all the violence, all the ghosts, all the revenge he'd faced, Mac had found something at Roosevelt High that 20 years in the military never gave him. Purpose beyond war. He was a protector, yes. A warrior, absolutely. But he was also a man who fixed broken lockers, mopped floors, and showed kids that ordinary people could do extraordinary things when necessary. That evening, Mac and Lorna sat on their back porch, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of orange and red. Think it's really over? Lorna asked. No, Mac admitted. Men like Barney Goodwin don't quit. He'll come back someday, or someone else will. The past never stays buried. But you'll be ready. I'll be ready. Lorna took his hand. I love you, Mac Powell. All of you. The janitor, the SEAL, the hero, the killer. All of it. Even the parts one hate. Especially those parts. Because they're what keep us safe. Mac pulled her close, grateful for a woman who saw his darkness and didn't flinch. 2 months later, Mac was cleaning the gym after school when Detective Klein appeared in the doorway. Got a minute? Klein asked. Mac set down his mop. What's wrong? Nothing. Actually, I came to thank you. Klein held up a folder. Buck Goodwin's testimony led to the biggest weapons trafficking bust in FBI history. 3 cartels, 2 terrorist cells, and a corrupt defense contractor all taken down. You saved a lot of lives, Powell. I was just tying up loose ends. You were finishing a mission. Klein extended his hand. For what it's worth, I'm glad you're here. This city needs people like you. Mac shook his hand. I'm not a hero, detective. No, you're something better. You're a good man who does hard things when necessary. That's rarer than heroes. After Klein left, Mac returned to his cleaning, the rhythmic motion of mopping floors strangely meditative. As he worked, Gregory Lowe poked his head into the gym. Poker night at my place Friday. You in? Lorna's working late. Yeah, I'm in. Good. Bring beer. Gregory paused. Hey, Mac. I'm glad you landed here. At this school, with these kids. They needed someone like you. I needed them too. Because that was the truth Mac had learned through blood and fire. Saving others had saved him. The quiet life he'd sought as a janitor became the meaningful life he'd earned as a protector. 3 years later, Mac still worked at Roosevelt High. He'd prevented 2 more potential incidents: a suicide intervention and a domestic abuser trying to access his estranged daughter, using the same blend of awareness, skill, and controlled violence that defined his life. Students who graduated returned to thank him. Teachers invited him to their weddings. Parents stopped him in grocery stores to shake his hand. And Barney Goodwin remained in a Mexican prison, fighting extradition and losing inch by inch. On Mac's 46th birthday, the school threw him a surprise party in the cafeteria. Jasmine, now a senior, had organized the whole thing. As Mac looked around at the faces of students and staff who'd become his family, he felt something he hadn't experienced since leaving the Navy. Peace. Not the absence of danger. Threats would always exist. But peace in knowing he was exactly where he belonged, doing exactly what he was meant to do. Protecting people. Making a difference. Living with honor. That evening, as Mac locked up the school and walked to his car, he noticed a figure standing under a streetlight. Young, maybe 19, wearing a hood that shadowed his face. Mac's hand moved instinctively toward the concealed pistol he now carried at all times. The figure stepped forward, pulling back his hood. Mr. Powell? Mac relaxed slightly. Do I know you? No, sir. But you saved my sister 3 years ago, during the shooting. I'm Jasmine's brother. He extended his hand. I just wanted to say thank you. She's applying to college now, wants to be a teacher. Says it's because of you. Mac shook his hand, emotion welling up. She did that herself. I just helped. That's what heroes say. The young man smiled. Take care of yourself, Mr. Powell. The world needs more people like you. As the young man walked away, Mac stood in the parking lot, processing the moment. He'd left the Navy thinking he'd failed. Lost teammates, killed an enemy target under questionable circumstances, walked away from the only life he knew. But maybe failure wasn't the end of a story. Maybe it was the beginning, the painful transformation that led to something greater. Mac Powell had been a warrior. Now he was a guardian. And as long as Roosevelt High needed him, he'd be there, mop in hand, ready to protect, ready to fight, ready to be the quiet strength that kept darkness at bay. Because that's what good men did. They showed up. They did the work. They protected those who couldn't protect themselves. And they never, ever quit. This is where our story comes to an end. Share your thoughts in the comments section. Thanks for your time. If you enjoy this story, please subscribe to this channel. Click on the video you see on the screen, and I will see you there.